Oh, I see the live.
All righty. There we go. Welcome back, everybody, to Chaz and Friends. I am, of course, Chaz, and I am joined here by my good friends Karl and Pete from Geek on My Sleeve. And very excited to have them here. I see Karl in the window. We're going to have Peter here in a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Getting coordinating kid duties.
Yep. Yep. And all the joys there.
I'll take her.
Yeah.
She's fine.
All right. Cool. So as with previous Chaz and Friends streams, guys, this is gonna be low key, interactive. Feel free to comment and everything if you'd like to say hi to Karl and Pete when you join the stream. We're just gonna keep it low key. No topic here. All rabbit trails are up for grabs on this stream. So if you guys have questions for Karl and Pete, especially if you don't know them very well, make sure to fire away. And this is a good chance for me to geek out with my buddies on whatever, right? So yeah, very, very exciting. And let's see here. I'm going to play with the screens here a little bit. That might. There we go. That's probably going to work better. All right.
Yeah.
So Karl, I'm gonna give you guys a chance to introduce your channel and tell everybody where to find you and all that good stuff. And I'll have it linked in the description as well. So
yeah. As always, Chaz, like super excited to hang out with you. We've talked about it before on previous streams that we've done. Like one of our favorite things about this space is just meeting other people. And pretty much our channel is Geek on My Sleeve, and we do geek outs every week. And yeah, like I was going to say, just finding people who are like-minded, enjoy a lot of the same books, and geeking out with them. So we pretty much do over on Geek on My Sleeve, we do every Sunday it's about an hour to 2 hours where we pick a different book and then just kind of do a live discussion of it. Been fortunate enough to have you on, I want to say 2 or 3 times. I know we did Dune together.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did Mistborn together, both 2 of my favorite series.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, did we have you on Bob Reverse, or we did Bob Reverse on your channel, which is pretty similar?
You did have me on for the first Bob Reverse book.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I put it down for a while, and you guys spurred ahead on it. So
yeah.
Which was cool.
That's our big thing. We try to do some other stuff. We've done some other tech tips and different things. But yeah, just really having fun in the space and really appreciate you having us on. And then yeah, I would let Peter chime in, but he's doing some dad stuff at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. No worries at all. It's all good. We'll chat with him when he gets here. And now, speaking of Mistborn, Era 2 is about to be finished. Have you guys read Era 2 yet?
Oh, I'm trying to remember how far I've gotten. I want to say I've gotten up to that's the Wax and Wane, right?
Yeah, Wax and Wane.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, it's been forever since I've gone back. I know I've gone through at least 3, and I think I gotten through the 4th. Does that sound right?
The 4th one comes out in November, I think it is.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the final book comes out this year.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking there was already 4 out. Like Brandon Sanderson is just one of my favorites, and it's actually how I got Pete, who helps me run the channel, back into reading and audiobooks. He just swore up and down. He's not much of a physical reader. He probably won't mind me saying, just being dyslexic, but when it comes to audiobooks, he can get through them like nobody's business. But Brandon Sanderson and Mistborn is what kind of helped get him the reading bug, if you will. And gosh, it seemed like for the longest time, at least once a month, I'd pick up a Brandon Sanderson book. So yeah, I'm super excited that's coming back out. So we'll have to work that in.
Yeah, definitely. And audiobooks really are great for dyslexia. I know on the Kindle there's actually a dyslexic font.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
My friend Ariel over at Reading and Whatnot, she clued me into it. I had no idea it was a thing, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
And there he is.
Yeah.
Pete, what's going on, man? Oh, got the little one there.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we were just talking about Mistborn era 2, Pete.
Yeah, Mistborn 1 I really enjoyed. 2 I enjoyed, but it just didn't quite have the same flavor. What I enjoyed most about... Oh, hey, share your orange. What I enjoyed most about the Era 1 is he did really good with his giving you people who you love to hate and building them up as the bad guy just to give them the backstory and really make you feel for them. So it kind of turns the whole good versus evil thing on its head.
It does. Yeah. There were things that you presume about the Lord Ruler from book 1, and then as you get into book 2 and 3, you're like, oh wow, the Lord Ruler is more more complex for sure than
or yeah,
his motivations are more complex than we learned about in book 1.
Doing what he could with what he had, like even though there was the ash waste and there was the slavery or whatnot, it was his way to fix problems that he made when he had the power. Or I'm sorry, I missed it. Are we doing spoiler filled fair game?
Oh yeah, fair game. So yeah. Any and all rabbit trails that we go on for this video, just so the viewers are aware as well, there may be spoilers that pop up. So yes, feel free.
So the Lord Ruler bit for book 1 and then book 3 really drove it home for me, where Finn ends up getting the mist power essentially and becoming one with it. And then we had the opposition. I can't remember his name at the moment. But then we thought Finn was going to be the savior, and it turns out that it was Caesar or Caesar.
Cazed? Yeah. Yeah. That was a shocker. I did not. Well, I kind of knew a little bit. Like I knew a little bit of it from what you had said on our stream for Mistborn book 2 for the Well of Ascension. Because you didn't realize I hadn't read it yet at the time, but it wasn't a big deal because it didn't spoil the whole thing for me. And so when I got to the end, I'm like, oh wow, because I knew there was something about Sazed, but then I didn't realize, oh my goodness, that's I did not see that coming. I was kind of disappointed too, because I really wanted Vin to be the hero.
I was disappointed because she was built up to be the main hero of everything, but I applaud him for how well he ended up taking what is essentially a servant and making them into a god and more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's very exciting, and I haven't read Era 2 yet, but I'm probably going to do that sometime this year because with the final book coming out, I figure it's time for me to pick up Era 2. But
You're doing it right though. I used to have a hard rule that I wouldn't start series until they were about done, because nothing more frustrating than waiting forever for the authors to get around to it. I got burned pretty hard with George R.R. Martin.
yeah,
That's one of the reasons why I got an Audible account. Was it like 14 years ago? And my first 5 titles are Game of Thrones, and now we have nearly 900 audiobook titles in between, and I've been waiting for him to finish out the series. But at least Brandon Sanderson's pretty good about it. He seems to really take his writing seriously and treats it like a job.
right, exactly. Mr. I wrote 5 extra books during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, he's systematized to where like he has enough seniority for like alpha readers and everybody else that's assisting him that he can definitely churn it. And I've watched some of his stuff about his writing where he gets bored or he's not as like enthralled for doing certain stuff, and he switches to his like shorter stories or his novellas or his young adult stuff. So yeah, he's always putting out something, and yeah, just bouncing around.
Yeah.
He is. I've been really impressed with him for that, and I think George will probably finish the books. I hope he does. I'm
fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not a young buck anymore.
No, he isn't. Yeah, so I am really hoping that he'll finish it. But even if he doesn't, it was a really cool series. So
absolutely.
And now I'm still working my way through Fire and Blood, and I'm really excited. We're getting House of the Dragon in August, and I'm pretty stoked.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Exciting times to be a fantasy fan just in general. I mean,
absolutely. And gosh, you could probably appreciate it more than most with just all the new adaptations that have come out. And I think Game of Thrones coming back to it was like one of the first that really did it well and allowed franchises to adopt the series.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, even if
model
Game of Thrones guy doesn't finish, that's where Brandon Sanderson kind of got his foot in the door for finishing out the Wheel of Time. So
that's how I found him.
I don't know if that's who's going to pick up the mantle, but hopefully it's set up that someone could.
I think he said though that he doesn't want anybody else writing in his universe.
Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think he did. Although when the cards are on the table, who knows what'll happen? But
that's true.
It definitely couldn't be Brandon Sanderson.
I wouldn't expect it to be Sanderson.
Yeah.
But,
I know. Yeah, I was just saying on an offside. Some people have asked if he might be the one. I'm like, no, don't give it to Sanderson.
Yeah.
Or Scott Baker, I've heard would be a good. The Prince of Nothing series. I've heard that he would be a good fit to take up George R. R. Martin's mantle if something happened. But definitely exciting times to be a fantasy fan. I'm super excited for Sandman.
Okay,
I just can't wait. And if you guys haven't,
that's one we haven't picked up yet.
Yeah, because they've got the first 5 volumes of Sandman on the full cast production on Audible.
I've seen it advertised.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and Neil Gaiman narrates it and everything, and it's just wow, it's brilliant. I just
Again,
finished volume 2.
like amazing time to be a fantasy fan and just like everything else. We grew up listening to audiobooks like on road trips some, and the current stuff out now is just leaps and bounds better. Like you listen to stuff, some of them full cast, full like audio productions. You got like songs, singing, just like sound effects, just everything. Like you feel in the universe.
Well, that's
Um,
where we do the Audible or audiobooks, and I was trying to explain it to someone, and they're like, "Oh, well, I just don't do books," and I was like, "Well, that doesn't really make sense because." So you can get bad narrators where you can essentially, depending on what you're listening to as well, it will be a monotone and not very enthralled or exciting. But then you have the other end, which is essentially, Star Wars level, where you've got like the intro music and you've got level up sounders and you've got, sword or lightsaber noises type effects, and as well as like good narrators that distinguish their voices, and you can tell who's talking before or the author actually says, so and so said or whatever, and that's where there's definitely a wide variety.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been wanting to pick up and try. So I'm a huge fan of the Dresden Files, and I've been wanting to try and pick up the audiobook specifically because I've heard that James Marsters is brilliant.
That's been on my TBR forever, is the Dresden Files. We listened to
Something Solaris
or Codex of
Codex Alera.
Yeah,
we got there.
Yeah,
it's a unique world. I
was about to say,
I felt like
the official backstory there.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a joke. Someone was like, "Oh, well, every story's already been done and nothing's ever good." And he's like, "Well, give me 2 whatever concepts and I'll smash them together and I'll make something epic." And for me, he is a good writer. Yeah, it was
Pokemon.
like Roman Legion meets Pokemon, and it was well written. It's not really my flavor because it dealt a lot more with politicking and political maneuvering, and that the magic system and the world, like I truly enjoyed. But I'd read it again, but it wasn't as it was missing my combat elements more or less.
Yeah, I get it. It's and not everything is for everyone. It
was definitely a good series, but not my flavor.
Yeah, I get it. I've had a few of those. One that's I've found to be really interesting is Malazan.
It's another one on my TBR.
I just finished Dead House Gates not long ago, and there were a couple of points where I was really struggling with it, and I got it on Kindle Unlimited, so the audiobook came with it as well. So I said, okay, well, I'm really struggling here. I'm going to switch over to the audiobook and see if I can get in the groove better. And it helped a little bit, but man, the narrator was just I did not like the narrator. It was awful. So so like you said, Pete, sometimes some narrators are just a miss for you. And
and it's also the difference between like if you get a single narrator versus there are like casts of narrators versus there's casts of narrators with audio engineers that do there's multiple levels of it all.
Yeah, exactly. But I've heard that James Marsters is definitely one to try out for I've heard most people I talk to say that he is Harry Dresden. There's just no two ways about it. So I'm pretty excited because I really enjoyed Marsters on Buffy. He played Spike, and I've enjoyed him in there's a couple of others that he was in that I enjoyed. So yeah, I've been a fan of James Marsters for a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that. Just to give people who are watching a little bit of an idea, if they don't know you very well, so you guys are twins, right?
No, we're what, 3.5 apart?
3.5 apart. Okay, I thought I know you weren't completely identical twins, but I thought you were twins. So okay,
we get confused a lot, actually.
Yeah,
very often. But yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm
that
the
was
older
my
brother. But we're very much alike. Which is why we always get excited when we're able to get Chaz and our other friends on our geek outs, because sometimes Peter and I can finish each other's thoughts and we're so in sync that it's nice to get some differing views.
Yeah, something to kind of contrast, or just an alternative viewpoint. Yeah, definitely helps.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yep. Now, so Karl, you're the older. So Pete, is he wiser though? He's older, but is he wiser?
I think we have our specialties. He's definitely got his niche and his expertise, and then I do the mechanical, technical side of things, and he does the HR nice side of things.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I was that's one thing that I really appreciate about your channel, just to begin with, was the fact that you guys are brothers and you have such a close relationship like that. That really sets your channel apart. I think. So yeah,
it's the idea of it kind of came about because I was always finding audiobooks and giving them to Pete, and at that time I think it was like pre-COVID. We were still kind of getting together with some family to try to do like a family dinner every so often, and then Peter and I would pretty much just be geeking out about the books and everything, and it's like, we could do this live and get other people to join us, and that's pretty much what started us down the path for getting to the channel.
Well, that plus I think there was some like, I was complaining about there being some sports thing going on, and it's the typical work watering hole mentality where everybody gets together and, this team's playing, or that team's playing, and I had zero interest or relevance. They could tell me a team and I couldn't tell you if it's a professional or if it's college or whatever. So kind of to have or find our own little interest or watering hole type conversation.
Yeah, right. And we've definitely noticed that in the space that a lot of other people kind of like us, where they don't have too many people in their lives that they can really talk about, like with books and whatnot. Some people are fortunate to where like some other relatives like Peter and myself, but just not as many people read. And then we find some awesome friends through the internet like Chaz here, where you're 2 time zones over on the other side of the US, and yet we got so much more in common book interest wise with you than we do most of our meat space friends.
Yeah.
So we live in amazing times. Very grateful for it.
Yeah, the internet's done a lot to help people find their tribe, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, that and just make the world a smaller place. Like we've had a couple opportunity, or was it? Were you the one who got a couple authors on, or that might have been? Oh, anyway, I'm drawing a blank. But we've had an opportunity to actually like chat with a couple of the authors of books because they have their own Reddit pages and Discords and everything, and then we're able to actually chat and ask with them, where before it used to be such a void, or like a separation of being famous and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I dream about just being able to chat with like Margaret. I always butcher the names of it, Weiss and Tracy Hickman and everything.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome, right?
And I think I was even like went to Gen Con a couple of years back, and they were there, and I was just too shy to go up and like strike up a conversation or whatnot. But with the internet, it's really what's the right terminology? Kind of like eliminated some of that gatekeeping to where you could actually interact with the authors themselves.
Yeah, that is really cool, and that would be a dream to interact with some of those authors. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, that would be awesome for me too. I'd love that. I did have one author on the channel actually, and that was Chad Nicholas, the author of Nightmare and
I remember that stream.
Yeah, he's really good. His books are really good, and so that was cool to have him on. But yeah, I'd love to have some bigger, like high profile. I mean, my dream would be to interview Neil Gaiman. Obviously, I mean,
there we go.
If I could interview Neil Gaiman, I could die happy.
Yes. Oh, but yeah.
I mean, I'll still die happy. Hopefully not too soon, but I die even happier if I got to interview my favorite authors. So
the internet's making, like Pete said, smaller and smaller. So, and your channel keeps growing. Before you know it, they'll be approaching you for the interview.
Yeah, well, yeah, you never know.
I guess that's a pretty common thing in other spaces. I was talking to a coworker, and he's big into wanting to do chef-oriented stuff, and what are they called? Critics and whatnot, where you go and you do your critic review and you write your blog and so on and so forth. And it's kind of like a beta or an alpha tester for games, where they come in and they find the bugs and work through it and help them troubleshoot things. So I guess they kind of have like alpha and beta readers, where it's like a separate thing, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. That that would be cool. It is getting a lot easier to make those connections in our current setup now, and see where that goes. Few years back, hey, are you guys familiar with Sean Speakman?
I don't think so.
He runs Grim Oak Press. He's Terry Brooks' webmaster, so he's written several books, and he published an anthology. Oh gosh, it's probably been 14 years back now, called Unfettered, and he's published several other anthologies since then, with a bunch of authors providing short stories for the volumes. So there's Unfettered 1, 2, and 3, and he's got a couple of others. But he's also written some of his own books. And I had an opportunity back when I had a blog. I did an email interview with him, where I sent him the questions. He responded to them, and then I posted it on my blog. So
that's awesome.
that was pretty cool, and that was many years back, and I don't even blog at all anymore. But I would love to connect with him again. He's even bigger now than he was back then. So he still is very close with Terry Brooks and does all Terry's web stuff. But
Nice.
yeah, he's starting a project with Patrick Rothfuss now.
Okay.
A couple of other things too. So yeah. And he still does a lot of special editions. Grim Oak has published some special editions for Mark Lawrence, Tad Williams, Terry Brooks, of course, some special limited signed and numbered editions and stuff like that. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a specialized vanity press, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sean's a great guy. He initially got the idea from Terry to do the anthologies as a way to pay for his medical bills, because he had battled cancer. I think he's battled cancer twice now, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so Terry's like, why don't we get a bunch of my author friends together and let's put together this anthology and help pay for your medical bills. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's always nice when you see like the community come together for stuff like that to help
It
out.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess not a similar vein, but separate is seeing a lot more collaboration events, at least for the lit RPG space, where you get authors who are, doing completely different stories, but then they come together and they help develop or play in the same world.
Yeah, that's kind of cool that seems to be a thing now. And I don't remember if it's happened when I've been watching your videos. I'm like joining in, but I think you guys had told me that a few of the authors, Dakota Kraut maybe, and a few others actually have chimed in on a few of your videos, on a few of your streams.
Yeah. We've had a couple different authors roll through, which has been like super flattering that they take time away from their writing to hang out. But in the lit RPG space, a book in Dakota Kraut's universe, Dennis Vanderkerken from the Arcturian Archives, has just been amazing and consistent. Like he's in our Discord. Again, like just to be able to have access to the authors themselves, to where they actually kind of like listen and take some criticism, it kind of makes us I don't want to say a little shy about it, but like we spend time gushing over what we like, but we also kind of critique as well, like this didn't hit home for me, that didn't hit home for me. And then you have like the authors themselves sitting there and listening and taking that criticism to heart, and going back to their writing is just flattering. But they have a Mountaindale Press Discord where all the authors are in there, and sorry,
a couple different points on that. For I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it yet, but we've also had an opportunity to kind of be immortalized in a book where several I'm a combat fanatic, so he's Dennis Vanderkerken asked for possible combat influences, and he's given a nod to us, and it's not out yet, but we got to see the draft of him incorporating the set of moves, and that's
that's pretty damn awesome.
It's kind of surreal.
Yeah, I bet so.
Fanboy fantasy right there, right?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's really awesome.
And then back to the Discord comment, like it also just makes people feel human, because same thing with Dakota Kraut, and he does a couple different things where he pops into his Discord and he'll you can see him writing or editing the next section, so you can comment as it is or go through it,
or even gaming. Like
when
they'll
he's just
stream their
having
games
a
and you can
casual
hop in
evening
and game with your
actually
authors.
play with them.
Whoa, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
But speaking of authors, are we allowed to pop questions back at you, Chaz?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. This is free game.
Yeah. How's your writing going?
Oh, well, it's
because we're still waiting for the audio book of your first
Yes.
group of short stories.
Yes, I know.
And
I
then
did complete the first story, and then I recorded the second story, but it went bad. I need to get more. I need to get more of like a sound booth type setup so that I can actually do it properly.
we know the struggle.
Yeah.
We know the struggle. I'm very fortunate that Peter likes to really geek out about that stuff and set up all my sound, where I'm just like, I don't got time for this. He's like, all right, here's what you need to do. It's not perfect, but we get it, especially depending on where you live, just all the noise and everything.
I think what I'm going to have to do is actually sit down with my headset set up here on and do it on the computer. That way I have a little more sound control.
I definitely am a big fan of monitoring it, so you'll say it and you'll hear it kind of deal.
I can't handle that. Having it loop inside your ear as you're speaking like that just derails me.
I don't know if I could do that or not, but I'll definitely give it a shot, because I definitely want to get that to you guys at the very least. So you have it.
If not directly monitoring it, then I would say to do kind of like a test recording thing. And depending on your setup, the biggest thing people do is they're either too like directly in front of their mic and you get like a bunch of popping or plosives, or I'm really bad at looking everywhere and I've got stuff all around me, so then they get kind of like a weird range looking away from their mic and looking towards it, and
right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, there's so many little tweaks that can make all the difference for that. So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's definitely something I want to complete. I just recently somebody did a review on YouTube for my book recently, a very positive review. I was super flattered. So
that's got to feel really good.
Yeah, it does feel really good. So that's coming. I am getting in gear to start putting out. Well, I need to get beta readers is what I need for my second book, because it's complete. It just needs to be fine tweaked and everything. So get some beta readers' eyes on it, and I need to get my cover done for it.
Okay.
But that is coming, and I don't know. I got in a real writing funk, and I don't know what happened, but well, life happened, I guess, really. But
yeah.
I do have some new ideas for stuff I'm wanting to work on. I recently, not long ago, I did the Blindfold book cover challenge with my daughter. I'm not sure if you guys saw that one.
Okay.
But I failed miserably. So my punishment was I had to write two poems.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not a poet at all. But it went quite well, surprisingly. So,
what's the concept behind the no cover?
Oh yeah. So basically, she picks 10 books off of my bookshelf, and I have to wear a blindfold, and she has to describe the book cover to me. And if I get it right, then I get points, and then I have to add up so many points. And if I don't reach the required number of points, I fail. So
okay, see,
I was
thinking it was more like where I just can't remember a name or a concept, and I start throwing out random descriptors to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was gracious on a couple of them, but most of them I was like, I didn't get very many points on. And so she and I filmed the poetry video today, and that went well. I'll be releasing that soon.
Very fun.
Reading my poems. And so I did come up with an idea on how to incorporate the poems into my multiverse. So
very cool. Very
so
cool.
that will be something I'm working toward as well. So
when you are not in a funk, Peter and I are trying to get better about just like getting in the habit of writing, and we started work on outlining some different story concepts. But like, what are some of your best practices or tips for just keeping the habit and making progress on the actual writing part? Because like you work, you got a life, you got kids.
yeah. When I did my best writing, I got out of the house.
Okay.
So like, I would go to Starbucks, or I would go to Barnes and Noble or the library or something.
Okay.
Just to get a completely different setting and out of my comfort space, I guess. So that was a big one for me. And I made myself a requirement that I had to at least write 1,000 words a day. If I got more, that's great, but I had to at least write 1,000.
That second one is something that we've heard a lot of, but it's just not the easiest to do. But I think getting out of the house might be what I need to do, because like I have my comfy work at home setup and everything, and it's nice, but it's so easy to get distracted with everything else, when stuff comes through for work, even if it's after hours or just life or just, the 20 other things up on my monitor. Maybe that's what I need to do when I really buckle down, is just take my laptop and go to the Y or Starbucks or something and just bust it out. Do you throw on some like music in the background just to kind of like tune the world out?
Yeah, I try to put on some epic, like fantasy movie score type music.
Yeah.
And there's some great stuff out there for that. One of my favorites is Audio Machine. It's not like a band per se. It's more of like a music hub. Like, they create stuff and you can license their music and stuff. So
very cool.
I've listened to some of their stuff. You can find them on Apple Music, or I'm sure Google Play has something where you can download their stuff too, or Spotify or whatever. So yeah, I'll put on some music to write to, and see, what was one of my, there was another thing I was going to mention, and I forgot what it was.
So you said getting out of the house, setting a writing goal.
Yeah. And also getting rid of other distractions. I used to write with Scrivener.
Okay.
And that's what I wrote my last book in as well. But I found that with Scrivener, like, it's got a lot of cool stuff. You can have like character templates on one part of the screen, and it's got it all divided up. So you've got a writing space and a character bio space and things like that. But I found that there was so many features that it got distracting.
That's good feedback to have, because I've been tempted to pick it up, and like when I get really into the headspace, I love filling out like all those details, and like we'll just have complete folders and a Google Doc and everything of just like all that stuff. But it sounds like what you're saying with Scrivener, it's not the easiest to kind of like turn all that off and tune it out. So it's not like you can just pull up your Google Doc of your rough draft and just have just that on the screen.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's got a dedicated writing space right within Scrivener, and it's great for some people. I think Campfire is another one. I keep hearing about Campfire.
I've watched some of their videos just to try get in the headspace just for like advice about writing and everything. But yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I really struggled with using that program. And so if when I do my next book, I'm just going to do it in Google Docs.
Okay.
Just, the bare bones page I think is best for me. And then I can have a separate folder for character stuff. But
Google Docs has come such a long way
it
too.
has,
Just
and it's
like
free.
Yep,
All these others
yep,
you have to pay for, and
yep.
so
And then it's a lot of the features I would say aren't overwhelming, but I enjoy like shortcuts or other ways to do it, because same thing where, oh, if you create like a heading or you like center it and do it a certain way, then you can pop out this little side menu where you could like jump to a chapter or jump back.
yes, I
And that
love that
way
about Google Docs.
it's quick to find and locate, but it's not all over everything. But I guess for the initial bit, I would probably want something more like you were talking, where I don't do linear very well. So I'm always kind of all over the place. So
Okay.
I might thrive in the chaos of, hey, this is something relevant. Hey, this is something relevant. Hey, this is there. But yeah, I'll definitely need help or someone to make it all make sense chronologically.
Sure, yeah. And so, and in your situation, Peter, yeah, maybe Scrivener would work really well for you if that's the case. So, yeah, it just got a little bit too distracting for me, but it is ideal for some people. So it's a great program. I'm sure Campfire is great too, and yeah, those have been some of mine. I know Stephen King sets a limit for himself of at least 2,500 words a day.
Wow.
And there were days that I actually hit that when I did my book. There were some days I hit more. I hit like 5,000 or something.
Wow.
If I was really in my groove. But I know he gets up at like 5 a.m. and he won't do anything, but he won't even allow himself to eat breakfast or anything until he's written at least 2,500 words. And that's great. It works for him,
I've heard of
obviously.
other authors that do that too. And
Yeah.
like it makes sense. And I'm sure like if I was really disciplined enough, I could probably make it happen. But as a parent, sometimes you can't really just completely tune out the world first thing.
I know it.
And
that's a hard part.
But I think we've heard something similar. I want to say it's Chris Fox who does the Magitech series, which is a very unique sci-fi.
It's almost sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah, but he talks about a turtle enclosure where like you have a spot that's separate from everything else, kind of like you were saying, where you're set up for success. Like if hey, you're not going to function without your coffee in the morning, get your coffee, go to your spot, and let everybody know, hey, I'm in the zone for this time to this time, so you're not getting a bunch of little distractions. And I think he even talked about like turning off the Wi-Fi and muting the phone and
just everything.
Airplane mode.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. That is really good. I've heard that as well. It's important to have that dedicated space. And that's kind of what I did when I would go out to Starbucks or the library, but it probably would have been better if I like just had a like pick a space and always run with it.
But and sometimes it makes sense, I would think, for creative, because you can't always be on it or active, but you could also see other distractions that aren't pertinent or aren't relevant. So seeing random strangers and their interaction, it's different than seeing your own household that you have to interact with.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, we currently a lot of initial concepts, but fleshing it out is where we're hitting a bit, or I'm personally hitting a bit of a wall.
Are you guys going to try and play in the lit RPG space, or are you writing more of a traditional fantasy? Like what are you guys pulling for?
I was banking for lit RPG, but it's really however the concept develops.
We've been having a lot of fun with just brainstorming with stuff and different story ideas. I think we're trying to just find something that makes sense and I guess we feel good enough to run with, right? Like let's kind of go to pick your brain about how you settled in on your multiverse and just kind of locked in, because I'm sure we aren't the only ones that have like all these different, like, oh, this would be fun to play over here, that would be fun to play over there. And it's not so much like a fear of commitment, but I also know that I'm not the only one with ADD, and want to make sure that we lock in and finish out the idea.
Right.
Get something to a conclusion and not get them mixed up.
And feel good about it.
Yeah. I totally understand that, and especially if you want to, if you wanted to create a multiverse, you have to figure out, something that feels like it's really going to work. Like for mine, I didn't get the idea for the multiverse until I restructured Talendor's Guess the first time. Because originally Talendor's Guess was just simply a book of short stories called Dragon Shorts, a collection of outlandish tales.
Okay.
And then when I got picked up by a publisher, which was a nightmare, and I won't go into that. It's a small publisher, but anyway. And you can ask me more about it if you want, that's fine. But I got picked up by this publisher, and the publisher encouraged me to turn it into a regular novel by making a frame story for it.
Yeah.
And so that's where Talendor's Guest came about, is it was me turning those stories into a frame story. And then I'm like, oh, hey, I could turn this into a multiverse. And it kind of all went from there. So the original plan was not to have a multiverse.
But I like that concept for development, because like right now it's just an idea or an overarching, this would be cool. But if we can do like a specific scene or a short version of, hey, this is, fleshed out instance mechanics, then we can expand upon it to have like how we got here and where we're going. I kind of like that, because then it's not as daunting and overwhelming as like a whole book, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you consider yourself more of a gardener or an architect when it comes to your writing?
Oh, God.
And I might be using different terms than you're familiar with, but hopefully
that's okay. Well, yeah, and I've heard the terms, but I'm not totally familiar with. Tell me a little bit about what you mean, and I can probably answer it better.
Sure. And I've heard different terms, but like I think I've heard that like George R. Martin is more of a gardener, where like he'll go and he'll kind of like start with an idea and just like allow it to grow organically and cultivate as you will. Which people will argue that can kind of create some challenges down the line if you don't plan everything out. And then there are architects where they go and they frame everything and they outline everything, and then they start writing and fill in the details of like, okay, you know, like here's kind of what I want to happen. Maybe here's a couple key scenes, and then we tie it all together. And yeah, I'm just curious, like, I guess with the short stories, it might be a little bit different because maybe you could play with and garden a little easier since they're kind of instanced. But then you said when you had to rework it, you kind of had to get all to fit into this overarching story.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of a challenge because I am I would be the gardener type.
Okay.
I think Brandon Sanderson calls it discovery writing.
Okay.
And some people just call it pantsers, you know, being a pantser, fly by the seat of your pants.
There we go. There we go.
But that's typically what I do, although I do have a little bit of structure. I would say I'm about 90% gardener and about 10% architect. I do have I do have a minimal outline, even if it's just in my head, of kind of where I want the story to go. But I allowed the story to flow within that and even change the outline over time if it happens.
That to me sounds like exciting and a little bit terrifying at the same time. Like exciting because for those people who are kind of like comfortable, like it sounds like you are and embrace it. Like the story kind of writes itself in a way and just kind of like comes into your head. And
it does.
I don't know, like, do you feel like you're more of just like the I'm trying to think of the right word, but just kind of like helping get it out on the page or being the speaker for the story?
Yes, I definitely do. It's definitely a very meta feeling. Because it's almost like I'm channeling these spirits onto the page.
The characters, right?
Yeah, channeling these characters. That's very much how it feels to me. Yeah,
that's awesome.
My characters are very personal to me, and I let them tell the story, and that sounds a little bit weird. You know, there some people would probably be like, you know, Charles, you should maybe get that checked out. But
you know, I guess, yeah, in some circles possibly, but I watch way too much TikTok, and they have a lot of people who do the skits where they play multiple personas and kind of act out the whole scene. You know, like they'll wear a different shirt for this character and different shirt for that character, and then I forget the name of the game exact. It might be 8 Degrees of like Kevin Bacon or something, where everybody knows everybody. And then, yeah, like I see it more like that, where you have to get into the mindset or character of who you're writing. So
yeah, absolutely. It does make for some interesting scenarios though, because speaking of being very intimately acquainted with your characters, one of the characters from Talendor's Guest, I now have an opportunity to incorporate into a full-length novel that I'm working on, or at least I'm working on it in my head.
Yeah,
and it's a character that in the book, I just called him the Ink Master. He's a tattoo artist that can change people's destinies with his tattoos.
Very cool.
And but in this book that I'm looking to incorporate him into, it'll kind of tell a little bit of his backstory, and I ended up having to come up with a name for him because he's not the only one. And that I realized that he's not the only one. You know, when I first wrote the character, I thought he was the only one, and then the more I got to understand where I'm going with my multiverse, I'm like, he's not the only one. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, it it makes for an interesting scenario for sure.
Yeah.
And multiverses are cool because they allow you to play in a bunch of different spaces if you want to. Like my last novel that I finished writing that I still haven't published is it's a sci fantasy.
Okay.
It's still very heavy on the fantasy, but there's definitely science fiction elements to it. So
That's exciting.
yeah, more so, I guess more of a dystopian, but still there's a lot of science in there. So it's kind of cool.
Being avid fans of both, I find that when an author can really blend those well, that's like right up my alley.
Oh yeah.
Right. Because there's just like so much that I love of both. But it's hard to blend in the series. Peter was talking about Magitech kind of found a way to do it well.
Nice.
I think a lot of it is just getting tired of the tropes, the boy and the dragon, or the prophesied child, or just like the standard, like, oh hey, you're gonna be our savior, and seeing it all happen. And then there's a lot of cool worlds. Magitech's a good one where it combines kind of like magic and tech for Magitech, where you can have like weapons that are able to be used and kind of like channel the magic, but then you have people who can kind of utilize the magic raw or in its own method. So it's and then you also have it's the sci-fi for spaceships that interstellar travel on top of giant dragons. So you get kind of the spaceship magic, weapon magic, and then giant dragons. So
yeah, that's cool. And it's interesting, on that note, because I have a novel that I got quite a bit done in, but it's kind of like Brandon Sanderson's Dragonsteel, like his first novel that he got into it, and it wasn't what he wanted, and so he still promises to write it one day, but it still needs a lot of work. And I've got a book like that incorporates space dragons, funny enough. So yeah, that's interesting. But
I think it's a nice refresher, and I might be misremembering the movie, but I want to say Dragonheart was a unique, or was exciting for me, because it's where there's a human who's about to die or whatever, and the dragon ends up taking a piece of his heart and giving it to them, and then now they're more or less soul bonded, where they both will perish if the other one perishes. And it's just kind of take that, but then like fish are a thing, and fish can breathe in water, but just blow it up and do it the other way, where instead of it being breathe in water, it's breathe in vacuum or breathe in space, or not need to, kind of like a whale type thing or a camel type thing, where they're able to store enough to move around.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for our writing, kind of like what you're talking about with your one novel that didn't turn out the way you wanted and just kind of got shelved for now, it's something that I think we have to accept for ourselves as we get back into writing, is like, hey, a certain amount of this is just trial and error and exercising this muscle, right? Like,
it is.
I come back to it.
I used to be an avid writer probably like 10 years ago, and then I go look at some of that stuff now, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's awful. Now granted, since then I've probably listened to 1,000 different audiobooks, so like I'm maybe better as a reader to know what to avoid and what to hopefully strive for. But yeah, not everything's going to hit the first time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I did end up including some of the characters from that story in one of the stories in Talendor's Guest. So
Okay.
that world still exists, but I have to revamp the novel a lot.
And I guess that's a nice thing where even if it doesn't work out in the scenario it started in,
Yeah.
it's development and fleshing out more of it and being able to transport it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
know.
Exactly.
So, just kind of curious. I didn't mean to completely derail this on writing per se, but
No,
like,
you're good.
do you ever kind of find yourself to where you have to double back with just being a gardening writer, where maybe like you take a turn that you didn't want to take, or kind of like got yourself in a corner and have to like go back a couple steps to kind of like bring it back on course? Or I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, that's happened to me several times.
Okay.
Yeah, that it happens a lot actually, because so much of my book is called the Nomad's Crucible, the new one.
Okay.
And that happened so many times where I got to a place and the story was taking a turn that completely contradicted something that I had already written.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm cursing the voices in my head. I'm like, okay, you told me to write this. And now it's not working. What happened? But yeah, that is one of the downsides I think about the gardening method is if you get to a place like you can write something at 5%, and
Uh-huh.
then you're all the way to 70%, and then all of a sudden something else pops up that just completely derails the whole project, and then you have to go back and fix it. And
But
yeah.
at the same time, like there's always two sides to everything, and I'm sure it's also kind of freeing to where, I know you're talking about like you're always kind of working on it in the back of your head, but when you sit down and you write, you can just let it flow, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to overthinking and worrying about sticking to the script or the path, right?
Right.
Sometimes I'm sure you've had some twists and turns where you're like, oh wow, like this really does work out well.
Mm-hmm.
So I worry that like I lean too much on the architect side of things. And I even noticed it with like, like even the Geek on My Sleeve project, like in the early stages and everything. I finally had enough of, oh, trying to think of the genre I would throw in, but like the motivational books and different people where they're finally like, hey, just start.
Mm-hmm.
The first ones are going to be awful. Like just get out there and go. Like
Right.
don't over analyze it, don't overthink it, don't over plan it. Like a certain amount of it's good, but then beyond that, like you just have to get the experience and the practice, and just like you said, get those couple thousand words down on a page, and then get a couple thousand more done and a couple thousand more done, and before you know it, you either have a novel or just a lot of good practice doing it, right?
Exactly.
You're telling me all that busy work in school was worth something? Just to continue and do it and progress.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what you have to do, and that's that's something I keep telling myself every day, kind of giving myself the pep talk. Okay, you've been in this writing funk for how long, Chaz? You just need to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give myself that pep talk on a daily basis and try to figure out ways to get back to my writing.
Hey, maybe we'll use this as the opportunity to hold all of each other accountable to get back in writing again.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. We'll shoot you a message here in a couple days asking you how the writing's going, and you do the same for us.
Yeah, okay.
To get back into it.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I think backup is a really key thing to help with motivation.
And a lot of the successful authors, like you're saying, they have writing groups where they go and they
do.
soundboard and get a fresh perspective on that stuff. That's something else Peter and I have talked about, and we try to be good for each other about it, where it's like we'll come up with all these crazy epic ideas, and it's like, okay, but how are we going to portray that to the reader? And will they get the madness that we're spewing, or will it just be madness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah
and I think there's always going to be unfinished projects, but I'm hoping to complete a few. I've got one that's kind of a dark take on a children's fairy tale and a few other things like that. So I've got stuff in the works. It's just
sorry, you said fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another great concept where Brandon Sanderson was talking about his Mistborn series, and the whole idea behind it was, or the start of the multiple ideas was, what if Lord of the Rings was different? What if Frodo made it to Mount Doom and had the ring, and Sauron or whatever was just like, oh, hey, thanks, I dropped that, no big deal, and it was all hunky-dory kind of deal. And it kind of sparked the idea of the Lord Ruler, where you think he's the bad guy, but it turns out that he had his best intentions, and everyone, he was doing it to the best of his knowledge. But also, The Witcher, which we need to get back to. It's a lot of, I guess, not necessarily, it might be fairy tales, but they're from a different culture, so it's very new and very separate from a lot of the stuff. So it was more exciting to me. But seeing the fairy tales or the children's stories taken into a fantasy or more intense light, I think could be exciting. It's kind of like a parody, but not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's lots of like fairy tale retellings out there. In fact, I think the market's kind of glutted with them. But if you're able to do it in such a way that it's unique and different, I think
it's all execution.
It
right?
is, yeah,
and
exactly.
and marketing, but
and marketing, yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah, but there's been several different authors where like you look at it and the stories are almost clones, but there's just those little differences. I know that there was like a J.K. Rowling one where somebody came out and claimed they had their work stolen because of similarities, and even Brandon Sanderson
well, his thing is
Elantris was his big break, and somebody else published something similar like 6 months prior, and it didn't launch the same or hit the same.
I remember one of his lectures saying that every story has already been written. There's the Pocahontas, there's it's all been written, but it's just how you write it and being able to deliver on your promises. So being able to give contextual information to say, hey, I'm going to be doing this, which is relevant, but then how you go about it is your own and is unique. So
exactly, that's where we kind of have to land with it, right? Yeah.
It's also encouraging because I remember again, years ago when I was really being good about my creative writing, I would get really discouraged or feel like I had to come up with a unique and crazy magic system or something like that. But to have like these authors themselves come out and say like, hey, like, magic based off colors, it's been done before. Magic based off of the elements, it's been done before. Like the tropes are there for a reason, but you don't have to necessarily like let it define it. But if it plays into your story and it works, like that's not all that the story is about, right? There's also all the other elements and aspects that make it unique.
Yeah, exactly. And there is always the question of, are you, what's going to happen? Is somebody going to try and copyright strike you or whatever, or claim plagiarism? I'm sure that's a big concern in this space, even though everything's already been written and rewritten. And but yeah, there's always going to be that risk. I didn't know the one about Sanderson, but I know the J.K. Rowling one was the Books of Magic, which was partly written by Neil Gaiman. It's part of his Sandman universe.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the Books of Magic is, or I should say, Harry Potter is extremely similar in many respects to the Books of Magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there was a lawsuit way back when against Rowling for the Books of Magic, but I don't know whatever happened with it. Well, obviously she wrote the books anyway, so I don't know if she had to pay them off or what. I never heard anything else about it, but
she
yeah,
can afford it now.
Yeah, that's always a risk. And I mean, there's things in the Nomad's Crucible where, hey guys, not able to stay, but wanted to pop in and say hi. I'll watch the whole chat tomorrow. Cool, Drew. Yeah, thanks for saying hi. Glad you're here. There's things in the Nomad's Crucible where there's similarities to things in the Dark Tower.
Okay.
Very, very few, but they're there. And I'd never read the Dark Tower. I didn't know anything about the Dark Tower when I started writing that book. But people may see similarities and say, hey, there's always that risk.
But it's bound to happen because a lot of my favorite authors that I read, like Chris Fox, he also gives a shout out and a nod to Margaret West and Tracy Hickman, which we've read, right? Like we're all pulling from a lot of the same influences. Like how many different Lord of the Rings clones have we read that drew inspiration from Tolkien? And like there's always going to be some of that, and to a certain degree it's good for the readers because it's familiar, right? Like we're so fortunate now that when we come across an elf, we can just get like a brief overall description that we don't have to go into like the elaborate details because we're familiar with elves and dwarves and all that. So it's
exactly. There's nothing wrong with the familiar.
And
sometimes it works and you can do it a unique way. And you're right, Carl, everybody has their influences. I don't think we can help but have influences, especially in the fantasy space, because it has all been done before. Like, I'm heavily influenced by Doctor Who even.
Sorry, sidestep.
No, go for it.
All right, just kidding. I gotta get something.
But yeah, we all share the same influences, and it's part of the reason why we enjoy the genres, right? So
yep, absolutely. And I think there's always a risk with some stuff like blending genres is very hard to do. and to do it in a way that makes sense. So, you know, a lot of people will say you really don't want to do sci fantasy because it's a really complicated blend. But then if you want to do it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, the writing has to be for us first and foremost to like express our story. So if the whatever genre it falls into is where the universe is, go for it. Like there's so many different subgenres now that like there's no reason not to do what makes sense. For me as a reader, as long as what promises you're making and setting out, and as you're establishing the rules of the universe, as long as those are followed throughout the story, or if they are bent, I understand why. I'm all for it. Like I love seeing something unique and different, or you know, like when the foreshadowing is there but it's not like up in my face to where I can write it. You know, you've given me enough and laid out the rules to where like, oh wow, like this is awesome and new and fun. Like I said, like I've read so many different Lord of the Rings clones that like I'm different. You know, familiar's nice, but also enjoy the new and the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of new and fun stuff coming out. I mean, in this, you know, we're in this heyday of fantasy and geekery, and
absolutely
self-publishing's become so big. And you know, there's a lot of self-pub that isn't really that great, but then there's others that are just amazing. Some of it's better than traditional pubs. So
well, that brings it back to the whole internet making the world a smaller place. Like now, before you needed a publisher to get the reach, but now everybody's on social media, so you have a better chance. Backing up a step, I actually had a random conversation about Doctor Who, and I have seen a handful of episodes, and I enjoy the concept, and I had a lot of fun, but I didn't really get like too sucked into it because for me, there wasn't as much of a sense of progression. I enjoyed the magic, so to speak, and the time travel aspects, but I didn't feel like we were having a lot of the character development and the growth and all of that. But that's their niche where everybody, you know, is like, oh, who's your favorite doctor? Or they can continue it without breaking the rules that they've set up, which is it's about saving humanity and it's about using this future tech and coming back in our Tartarus. And, you know, it's a unique, different way to make their own rules, so to speak, because it's a concept I haven't seen done well elsewhere.
Yeah.
My heart.
Then going, you know, you said step back, so going a step forward. I love that the self-publishing era is here. And like you said, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's just garbage. Like everybody can throw up their own little 99-cent thing on Kindle. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that we've kind of gotten away from some of the gatekeepers to where it used to be, you know, there were firm rules that based off marketing you had to follow. And I think a lot of like really good stories probably didn't get out there. And so like now there's enough hunger and thirst. Like, gosh, we're always burning through our credits on Audible every month, buying more to where we're picking up 3 to 5 books a month. And yeah, like just want that much more.
Hi there, Derry. Welcome. Yeah, Derry's in New Zealand, I think, right? So yeah, she's a little bit of a time difference there. Glad you made it, my friend.
Yeah, there's always the replay.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Derry's got a great channel too. You guys should check out. She specializes in Discworld, going over a lot of the Discworld stuff. Really, really good.
That's another one that's been on my TBR.
Yeah,
for a while.
It sounds familiar,
and I'm going to have to go check out Derry's channel because I know there's a couple different ways that you can approach this series. So yeah.
Discworld is nice because it's one of those that if you want to, it is spoiler free as well. Yeah, the Discworld's great because there is a little bit of structure to it, but you don't have to follow the structure. You can literally pick up any book and enjoy it as a standalone.
Nice.
In most cases, but there are 40 plus books. So if you wanted to,
we need a new bad habit.
So yeah,
I guess Realm of the Elderlings is her next one. So that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, Robin Hobb, I've heard good things about. What were you going to say, Pete? Sorry.
That's another, I guess, unique concept for it because you said you did the short stories that ended up developing into full stories, ended up developing into a multiverse. So I like the concept or idea of taking a short story just to flesh out a scene and then to expand upon it to do a full story. But then for having, there's an author that we've been doing recently in the lit RPG space where he's taking the approach of every character is their own hero or every person is their own main character. And so we have interactions with all of them and we know them all, but to be able to kind of like you were saying with the Ring World, start anywhere and have it all make sense. Which is it's a interesting concept.
Yeah, definitely. And nice thing about Discworld is it really plays to your funny bone because if you like British humor, absurdism, stuff like that, that's really what it is. But it's orchestrated in such a way that he talks about a lot of themes, and a lot of themes are explored, and I think trying to think what I was gonna say. But yeah, a lot of themes are explored in ways that makes you think about stuff, but in a funny sort of way. That's what I wanted to say. So,
we're definitely enjoy the humor aspect. I don't think I've been exposed to a whole lot of British humor per se. When you say that, I think of like what was it, Shank Redemption, the zombie parody movie one.
Or Shaun of the Dead.
Maybe that's what it is.
Is that the one? Yeah. I haven't seen that one, but I've heard it's pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah, and Discworld is separated into different character group subseries, like Darius said here. So it's
nice.
Like you have 6 or 7 books that just focuses on the city guard or the city watch.
Okay.
And that's where I started, and I'm having a blast. It's great. But there's also books that focus on death, and death is super funny and highly philosophical as well. If you like philosophy, you should read the death books. They're really good.
That might be right up my alley. Peter would probably go with another one that's more combat oriented. Maybe he'd start with the guards.
Right, exactly. Death covers philosophy, the watch is social injustice, which is Yeah. So see, yeah, Derry's your girl. She need if you want to know everything there is to know about Discworld, she can tell you so much. So
Good
yeah,
stuff.
definitely
Good stuff.
check her out. Just quickly going back, and then I think we're going to wrap this up because we've been going for almost an hour and a half here, and I know it's late where you guys are, so I don't want to keep you guys too late, and you got your kids and stuff.
We appreciate it.
But yeah, I did want to say that, like back on what you said, Karl, about self-publishing really opening the doors for a lot of people who otherwise would not be able to get past the gatekeepers. That is so true, and it ends up getting those authors more royalties than they would get through traditional publishing as well. So if you can do it well and make it big without the traditional publishing houses, yeah, it's really good. So,
well, and on top of that, there are so many additional alternatives for generating revenue that weren't around a couple years ago. Where, for example, you have like Patreon, where you can, if you've got a subscription thing and they can get stuff, or you have like
The
free
Royal
stuff
Road,
like Royal Road, but same thing where you can subscribe and then you get stuff sooner. So it's a way that like a lot of it is free still for a majority of people, and it's a way to get feedback without seeking out people to share your content, to start developing a community kind of naturally without directly publicizing and doing a bunch of extra stuff.
Right.
So it's developed into a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Indie publishing seems to keep a lot of freedoms regarding art choices too. Yeah, it does. Being a creative works well, like with self-publishing, because you don't have somebody telling you, well, we can't publish that. When you can publish that, you just don't want to publish that. So it's not. It may not be what sells and makes the publisher the big money, but there's still people out there that want to read it.
Yeah, it falls into like niche and branding. If this isn't something that fits with the rest of our stuff, we want people to come here for, sci-fis with whatever,
And I think the landscape has changed a lot too. The publishers used to have to think of like, okay, we need to do like so large of a publishing run, right? Like 10,000 copies and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where now so much of it's digital. Like I still have my physical books, and I still collect and support my favorite authors more often than not now, just for the sake of time. They sit on my shelf until I have like a birthday party or something that pops up, and I'm like, oh, which one of these should I gift or pay it forward? Aside from that, I go and I just get that old book smell just to get a little whiff before I start my day. But with the indie space now, since they don't have to do such large print runs, I think again, so much more goes to the author. If it publishes and it sells only so many, you don't have to worry about recouping the cost of all those printed books. And I think they even, maybe it's just Amazon, but have like on demand printing for some of that stuff. So
on demand has become really big. Ingram Spark does that as well.
Yeah. So it's just really encouraging. And it was years ago, but I remember like just some of these really famous authors, you think like, oh my goodness, they're selling so many copies, yet they were only making like 40,000, like making teacher salaries being these amazing authors, because so much had to go to the publishing, and like after everybody takes their cut. Yeah, we live in an amazing time. Definitely looking forward to your audiobook release, Chaz, and that second book when it comes out.
Yeah,
So.
thank you. I'm excited too. I'm excited to get that to you guys, and I'll let you know when that's available. Concept of on-demand printing is fantastic. Yeah, it is more efficient too. You're right, Derry. Yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and let Karl and Pete go here. Real quick, if you guys want to plug anything that you got coming up in the next couple of weeks, Karl and Pete do a live stream every Sunday. So
Yes.
have at it.
Except for rare occasions, every so often life does get in the way, but more often than not, every Sunday we do a live book discussion. We've been playing a lot in the lit RPG space, but I'm trying to get Peter to come back out and play more in the fantasy and sci-fi space. Take a lot of suggestions from our friends and pick them up. The one we're doing tomorrow is actually a series that got recommended by some buddies in our Discord called The Perfect Run. We're on the second one.
It's another one of those amalgamations, or like it's hard to define genre-wise, that does really well, because it's kind of like My Hero Academia, where everybody gets powers, but it's not, because not everybody gets powers. And then it's kind of like apocalyptic, because there was they call it the genome war, which kind of set everybody back, but now they've got powers, so there's new concepts coming out. And then like all the powers came about because of, they call him the alchemist, so it's got like alchemy elements, but then the alchemy was actually from a different world or a different universe, so it's got like sci-fi space elements. But
that's interesting.
I think Karl describes the main character pretty well as kind of like it's kind of like Deadpool, where he's got that sense of humor, and yeah, it's sense of immortality, so to speak. And
well, I'm all about Deadpool, so give me more of that.
yeah, he's a lot of fun, a lot of fun. But yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get Chaz back on there when he gets current with some of the other series we've started with him. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, and you had me at Deadpool too. I love it. That's great. Yeah, I will definitely be getting back on your channel for sure. I'm excited about that, and I'm really glad you guys could join me today on Chasm Friends.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's nice change in pace between being I guess dialed in for one and just having a broad stroke concept.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, if you're watching this on the replay as well, make sure you check out Karl and Pete over at Geek on My Sleeve. Their channel is called Geek on My Sleeve. Check it out, like and subscribe to them, and subscribe here too if you haven't already. And make sure you read more books. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.